Hi, in this video I'll be going over the conversion of a 2006 Suzuki RM250 from a near-stock motocross bike to an enduro and cross-country bike. I shall be going over the various mods in no particular order, but I will list the top mods towards the end of the video. In hard conditions, this basic device has helped me get out of tricky spots such as getting stuck in bogs or struggling to get up a climb. These straps are easily found from various manufacturers and can probably be made from a piece of rope. On a motocross course, you typically don't come into contact with bushes and trees on the regular. When riding, I generally need as much room as I can get and often end up riding through bushes and clipping trees. After getting a finger trapped between a lever after clouting a tree, I decided to get some handguards. To be honest, I didn't research much into the handguards and bought a Service Rally Pros. They don't fit that well, look a bit weird, and for me don't provide great protection from roost. However, I can run through bushes without fear of my hand getting torn off the bars or the brake lever getting pulled. Also, when I crash, the bars do not dig in and the handguards turn into sliders. Despite this, they can cause accidents. What could have been a simple clip of a tree turns you spearing off into the opposite direction and into the undergrowth. One thing that stands out between enduro and motocross bikes, until recently, are their clutch controls, motocross being cable and enduro's hydraulic. Growing up solely on cable pulled bikes, I find the hydraulic clutch bike feel to be a little odd. However, there is no getting away from the fact a light pull is really nice. Micromanaging a clutch lever on dirt bikes is a learned technique and crucial to keep a two-strokes engine lit. I've modified my clutch to have as smooth as possible feel by using a combination of modifications: a CNC machine basket, a Honda ratio lever and a low friction cable. The basket is made by Talon and is a vast improvement over the OEM's cheese-like performance. OEM's basket notch and prevent the plates from sliding movably. The Honda pull ratio is reduced compared to Suzuki's. Although you have to pull further to disengage the clutch, it makes one or two finger operation of the clutch possible for long periods of time. In order to operate the clutch for hours with one or two fingers, I chose Venhill feather-like cables. I first used them on my BMW Airhead, which is notorious for a heavy clutch, and I was impressed by how they made the clutch smoother to operate. They're slightly more expensive than normal cables, but in my mind they are worth it. The stock RM250 tank can hold 8 litres. Over the course of a 3-hour race with a stock tank, I would always have to fill up at some point. Although I would normally need about 10 litres for 3 hours, I have done longer races such as 4, 6 and 12 hours, and having a large tank is a boon. The IMS tank now on the bike holds just shy of 14 litres and is quite visibly larger, but does not get in the way. It doesn't quite fit the bike right, and you will feel the weight when full. Additionally, there is no reserve tap, so caution is required. I've marked out 5 and 10 litre lines on the tank so I can check the level when stopped. I've also added an inline filter as the tap does not have one built in. Dirt could easily get into the tank at the track and trap open the carburetor's float needle. The wheels and or tyres have been changed to suit enduro better. On the front, I've ended up using a golden tyre, GT216 AA fatty tyre. It does well in all terrains I've used it in. It's not quite as good as a Dunlop MX3S in grass and tracks, but it's better everywhere else. For the rear, I have two wheels. The original 19-inch wheel with a Michelin AC10 tyre, which I use for practice and as a spare at races. I also have an 18-inch wheel for racing. I've experimented with tyres for this 18-inch wheel and not settled on anything yet. Mitas XT754s are great in muddy and soft tracks, and due to its thin sidewalls it is compliant over bumps. However, they're awful over hardpack and rocks. Dunlop MX3Ss are better in hardpack and rocks, but awful over bumps and roots due to its thick sidewalls. At both ends of the bike I use the tubeless system with sealant. It's great for slow moving hard tracks as you can drop the pressures below what's possible with tubes. However, due to many punctures on the rear in recent races and random malfunctions on the front, I think I'll change to mousses instead soon. I've not experimented much in this department. I put a larger disc on the front as I found the performance inadequate for one finger operation with sintered pads and a stock rotor. As for the pads, I've experimented with sintered pads from SBS, EBC and Goldfriend. EBC are more expensive for no benefit as far as I can tell. SBS and Goldfriend work for me and I pick whichever is cheapest. I've also tried EBC carbon ceramics and they're good when in the dry. They have a good feel and seem to be as powerful as sintered pads. However, I do not find they last all that long in wet and gritty conditions, and don't perform well in the wet anyways. As stock, the bike has 13 by 50 tooth gearing, aluminium rear sprocket, and narrow gaps between the gears. After experimenting with 48, 49 and 50 tooth sprockets, I found a 49 tooth rear to be a good compromise. A 48 tooth sprocket was good on the open fire roads. Unfortunately, it required too much clutch slipping and slow technical riding. I'm a fan of the RFX HCS Pro Steel rear sprockets. Although they're heavier than aluminiums, they last a lot longer and are similarly priced. A change I made to cope with a considerably wet and muddy Britain is to forego the front sprocket cover. With a cover on, despite having large openings, it still packs up quickly and keeps your chain and sprocket continuously dragging through the mud. I modified my suspension in two stages. First I used Racetech's spring rate calculator to replace the springs in the forks and shocks suited to my weight and use. That made the bike ride somewhat better, wrists weren't getting shattered and the rear wasn't pinging off everything anymore. What made a real difference was getting the suspension revalved for Enduro by a local workshop. It truly was a night and day change. Now when going through rough sections I am able to hold a line better. If there is one modification I recommend the highest, it's this, getting the suspension revalved. The expansion pipe that the previous owner put on was a Bills Pipe Pro. Bare steel, it looked bling when polished up, but easily rusted. It had a reasonable spread of power, but really made the bike run like a raped ape at the top end. I had read that the FMF Gnarly pipe is the king of Enduro when it comes to expansion pipes. When I first tried it, I can see why it got that reputation. It has plenty of low end torque spreading to the mid-range. Unfortunately, the top end power and overrun are noticeably reduced, but for what I use the bike for, it is a good trade-off. The bike originally came with a depth silencer, and I haven't felt the need to replace it. I just replace the packing regularly. The engine on this bike has not been modified in terms of performance, i.e. squish pan change, porting, reducing compression or ignition timing. I have only added an extra turn to the power valve preload spring, replated the cylinder and added a flywheel weight. The flywheel weight I added was a 10-ounce one, which is the heaviest available from Steedy off-road. It requires spacing out the flywheel cover, which causes the gear lever to rub sometimes. The change of this mod is quite significant, a lot less stalling, and the gained ability to tractor in low revs really helps in technical slow going riding. Apparently it helps with traction everywhere, but I couldn't say. I do know it softens the hit of the bike and makes it easier to race for hours on end. Lastly, I have added a V-Force 3 reed block which is supposed to improve performance all over the rev range. Honestly, I could not tell the difference it makes. Jetting is almost stock. I have leaned out the pilot jet considerably from a 45 jet to a 39, and the needle clip has been leaned out one step. This change was possibly required due to not using the premix ratio of 32:1, but 40:1 instead. I use a really cheap, fully synthetic oil, of which I have no complaints about. Some other minor changes I have made loosely related to the engine is the addition of a skid plate and kickstart lever replacement. The skid plate partially protects the engine case from rocks being flung up by the front wheel and helps when going over logs. The replacement of the original kickstart lever was due to the old one being so worn out my foot regularly slipped off it and it would sometimes get jammed in the foot peg. As the engine does not have an electric start, a good kickstart is helpful for tough enduro courses. My top 5 mods for converting a Suzuki RM250 to an enduro/woods bike are: Number 1. Suspension revalved and resprung for weight and use. This is a night and day change. Number 2. Suitable tyres for mixed terrain where the bike is to be used. This may require an 18-inch wheel, as enduro tyres typically aren't as available for 19-inch wheels. Number 3. Flywheel weight mainly to keep the engine easier to use in slower conditions. Number 4. An FMF gnarly exhaust pipe to gain low-end torque. And number 5. Handguards to protect hands and levers through the woods. Other mods to be considered at a later time are a better clutch setup, a skid plate, kickstart lever and an oversized tank. Although these recommendations are for an RM250, I think they are largely suited to most other motocross to enduro conversions. I know I've been asked by some of you what modifications I've made to my bike, and I hope this video has been helpful and informative.
Whoa, where'd that come from?